I'm Blackbright, broadcasting out of the UK. Welcome to my channel. If it's the first time you're passing through, you'll notice that I change up. I change up my topics, I change up my moods, and I change up my hairstyle. So today I decided to look different. I wanted to talk a little bit about the economy and whether or not its collapse is deliberate. If it's the first time you're passing through, you're welcome to subscribe, like, dislike, share, or interact with my subscribers. So, the GDP has fallen in many countries, but in particular the UK. It will be the largest fall in the GDP since 1945 and the hardest hit out of all the G7 countries. Now, for those of you who do not know what it means when the GDP falls, it means that there's less money, less economic growth, people lose jobs, there's a recession, people can't afford to buy stuff, people want to save and they're not spending money, so the economy isn't rolling around, it's not turning. And as a result, because it's not turning, there's no money. So hence a recession. So it affects the whole economy. Nobody gets scot-free, even the savers, because in the end their money is used to save other people. I mean, I know it's insured, but that is what happens. So was it really necessary to have this economic collapse, which is, in my mind, has been deliberately contrived? China set the scene. We saw all of those people. We saw the extreme measures for the coronavirus, and it set the scene for all over the world on how to behave. Everybody started mimicking China, or trying to mimic China, or using China's best practices when it's convenient, and when it's not convenient, just discarding them. But we have it out there. China was the backdrop. So when the other countries heard about the coronavirus, oh, fantastic idea, what we're going to do with our country. I mean, when you think about how China handled the coronavirus, their country's up and running now. UK, first world country, is on the brink of disaster. That's why I say it's contrived, because the UK is an intelligent country. It knows what it's doing, and anything it does is deliberate. Don't let them fool you when they're saying, oh, we've had to do this, and oh, the economy is shrinking, and oh, we had to close this, and we've had to do this, and there's no tests. Everything is designed to obstruct. If you notice, no tests, and if there's no tests, you can't go back to work. There has to be social distancing. No tests, so people who die and who haven't been tested, they're all categorized as the coronavirus. I mean, it's such a shame, and it's so obvious. But you can't say nothing. What can you do? You've got the people at the top telling you like it is, and the masses who sit around like sheep, swallowing it all up, just glad to go to the mall, glad that the lockdown's been lifted somewhat so they can go to the mall, do their shopping, can't wait till the pubs open so they can get drunk. Just aimlessly moving on right into the trap of self-destruction or mass destruction. So, imports and exports as a result of the lockdown. Import and exports came to a halt as borders closed, factories went into lockdown, schools closed, meant parents staying at home, employees furloughed or self-isolating. So that means less production. We've got non-essential businesses which were closed down, and that trickles down into redundancies and dismissals. Why I ask if the economy collapse is deliberate is because deaths attributed to the flu, I think we all know that, ranged from between 11,875 to 28,330 per winter season. When the UK, and that's not including Scotland, England and Wales, and 89% of those deaths by flu were pensioners. Were those pensioners isolated? Were people told not to go nowhere near them? No, nobody even knew that the flu was killing so many people. We should call it the silent flu. And then it's similar because when you think about it, the pensioners were disproportionately affected by the coronavirus. But so why is it with the coronavirus such drastic measures have been taken? And yet with the flu, which at the time the lockdown was in place, the deaths were so much less than the flu. And I believe they're only jumped up to 49,000 or whatever it is since everybody is designated with the flu if they haven't been tested. And then they're saying the tests are limited. So if the tests are limited and you've got people dying all over the place and they haven't been tested for the coronavirus, what does that mean? That's why the numbers are jumping up. Doesn't mean they died with or of the coronavirus. It just means they died and they've got the coronavirus label. Very convenient, because when you have that number, it allows them to enforce these legislations that they want to bring out when everybody has relaxed, when everybody feels safe, when everybody feels calm, and when they're all out there spending their money thinking it's business as usual. So with all those deaths, it was business as usual. No one even knew so many people were dying of the flu. There was no one around with PPE equipment, with masks, flights, weddings and concerts and football matches weren't cancelled. Borders weren't closed. Police were not employing drones to ensure house arrest. The elderly were not isolated from the family, and we weren't all under house arrest. I mean, it's not like, only the other day they lifted the fact that people from two different bubbles can't go into the same household. I mean, all of that exaggerated behavior, and it had to affect the economy. So they knew it would affect the economy. And this big bailout, oh, we're going to bail them out from billions, and then they leave them in the bloody lurch in August. All these businesses after August, they're not getting any more government money, and yet the majority of businesses can't go back to work. What good is that? I know different parts of the world have been adversely affected, but not as bad as the UK, which makes me believe that as a first world country who could have managed the situation much better, just like the United States. The United States is doing exactly the same thing. The only reason they wanted to ease the lockdown in the United States is so Trump can do his rallies. That's the only reason. Trump was not going to go out and not have his rallies for his election in October. So that's why he says he doesn't care, we're not going to do any more testing, because it's going to affect his bloody rallies. And while the rallies are going on, everybody is, apart from those who are affected, the world goes, it's business as usual. Everybody's all excited, Trump, Trump, Trump. And the only thing that is disturbing that lovely smooth transition into election fora is the fact that you've got the George Floyd protest, and that must be a thorn in Trump's side, because with that going on, it's reminding people of the poverty, of the injustice, of the fact that there's no jobs. And so you can pretend all you like while you stand up there with all your rallies trying to galvanise people and lift the lockdown so conveniently. I bet you after October, after the election is over, that they have another mass shutdown and they bring in martial law and goodness knows what else. They don't want to do it yet because it's going to mess up his election. That's just my opinion. Because to me, that is what it looks like, because I can't understand what else makes sense. It doesn't make sense to have all the two biggest countries almost on the verge of collapse, and all these little countries around who've hardly got anything striving and, building up. Their GDP's gone up. They're inviting tourism, they're travelling. They're doing everything. So why is it the two biggest nations can't cope? It's deliberate. They don't want to cope. They want a civil war, as far as I'm concerned. Once the company goes into economic collapse, and once the country goes into civil unrest, we have a civil war. And like all those three policemen that got caught on camera, that is what they're itching for. Not only a race war, but a civil war. To then get rid of everyone, and they don't have to worry about anything. And the rich can stay in their bunkers or whatever place they've got prepared, while everybody else is in a fora. No food, no drink. The whole place is in a mess. So yeah, we're in a full state of complacency at the moment. Full state of security. So many of us were forced into unhealthy sedentary lifestyles for over the past 3 months, which has been psychologically, emotionally, and physically and financially damaging. That is a form of abuse. What we've been experiencing over the last 3 months is a form of abuse. The coronavirus death toll in the UK as of the 27th of June is 43,514. And I bet you, maybe I would say 3,000 of those might be coronavirus related. The rest are everybody else with a coronavirus label. It wouldn't surprise me. Just my opinion. I just think it's strange. We don't hear anybody dying of flu. We don't hear of anybody dying of anything else. And to be honest, if my mother never died, I wouldn't even know that's what they do with a death certificate. How would we know? How would I have known that? Because I'm calling up the GP and saying to them, look, the doctor knows she didn't have the coronavirus. It's clear she didn't have the coronavirus. So why hasn't he sent the letter off to say that she didn't have it? He sends a letter off to say, because she wasn't tested, we cannot confirm that she did not have the coronavirus. So that applies to everyone then. And how many people who are dying are going to be tested? They're not going to waste their test on people who are palliative, are they? And then you kind of think about all of those people who are in hospital who they could be testing. And they sent all those elderly out without tests. They're limiting their tests. And we have to ask ourselves why. And the thing is, Piers Morgan is going on about it. And I mean, he has a point, but I think he's missing the point. But he does have a point. I mean, when they're saying 249,000, there's no evidence to say there's 249,000 people who have been tested. We don't know who's been tested and who hasn't. But the fact of the matter is, then if the regular John Joe can't go and have a test, are they going to be wasting their test on people who are dying? No, they're not. So all of those people who are dying get labelled, not necessarily, well, they'll probably get labelled died with coronavirus as opposed to died of, because it doesn't specifically say they did not have it and they didn't have the test. I think it's a damn cheat. That's out of all of this whole process, that has annoyed me the most. And I can imagine if my family wasn't so involved with my mother, and maybe we'd send her off to a care home or we'd send her off to the hospital. And then the doctor was saying, oh, well, if she'd died in hospital, she wouldn't have lived that long. I can tell you that much. And I doubt very much they would have wasted the test on her. Ooh, don't get me started. Anyway, what else have I got here? When Boris Johnson announced the lockdown on the 23rd of March, there were just under 9,000 deaths related to the coronavirus. And yet more people were dying concurrently from the flu. There's never been a lockdown, and there has never been a lockdown that would predictably damage the economy. I can't read my notes. So with the figures being much higher than the coronavirus at the time, did he really need to lock down the country? The murder of George Floyd has allowed many of us to take our eyes off the ball and made Boris Johnson look like the good guy, as they allow certain businesses to open up at great cost, and they allow people to hustle and bustle at a great cost to the owners, who have to prepare buildings, and that means going deeper into their pockets, putting them deeper in debt. You watch. They're going to let them all set up, use up all their money, borrow all this money, let them all set up their business, and then watch. They're going to say, oh, you know, we're going to have another lockdown. We've got a second pandemic. Oh, I'm afraid you can't go out. You can't buy no shop. There's no supplies. Ooh, we're running out of water. Can't get anything in from outside. We're confined. You watch. And then what they're saying, giving people are waiting in anticipation for the 4th of July. Do you notice the subtle link to America's Independence Day? So that psychological link. Oh, 4th of July, American independence. Oh yeah, we're all going to be independent on the 4th of July. We can go to the pubs. We can go and have a drink. We can go to a restaurant. We can have a meal. We can go to any shop we like. We can't have our nails done, but at least we can go and get something to eat. You know, those comfort things, that's what they're doing. They're filling us up with the comfort, the food and the drink and those things that dull our senses and make us big and fat and blotchy. Oh, it's not even funny. So, to the ordinary person on the street who is unwoke, everything looks as though it's back to normal. And the ordinary civilian on the street will ignore the silent whispers that GDP is falling and the economy is failing because they haven't got a clue how it will impact them. So off they go to the malls, the eateries, the cinema, believing that life is back to how it was, not realising that at any moment the rug is going to be pulled from under their feet, yet again, only this time, when they fall, they will not be getting up. Remember, the army is still on standby. They haven't sent them back to wherever they came from. They're still waiting. They can't wait to get started. And so this is what you're going to hear, which a lot of people are not going to listen to or take any notice of.
Although we put unprecedented mitigating